this thing on.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of The Cut. I am your host, Christian Williams, and I am here with Randy Hall. Randy, how are you, man?
Doing pretty good. Just this Monday night game was so interesting to watch. The Patriots just completely run the ball with one pass and still be winning.
So we talked about this a little before we got on here. Do you ever remember a time where a quarterback threw one pass?
No. Even in snow games, teams usually throw a couple times because they have to. But, Jesus.
I want to say there was like a Browns game with like 6 pass attempts when I was super young.
Even the Broncos last year when they didn't have a quarterback threw it like 10 times.
That's true. Shout out Kendall Hinton. Love that guy. He caught a ball last night too. Yeah, this Monday night game is crazy, but we are here to talk about everything else that happened in Week 13 and give you guys some waiver wire advice. But first, shout out to Better Fantasy. This episode is sponsored by Better Fantasy. That's BETTOR Fantasy. Better Fantasy is a new free-to-play app that lets you sync your fantasy football leagues and bet on the matchups. You can cash out for gift cards when your bets hit and even help raise money for charity along the way. They are a brand new company looking to grow their early adopter community. They have a really slick app, and it's really fun to use, guys. I put some bets down this week. I had some bad luck. I bet on myself in a couple leagues, and I failed. So double lost. I don't recommend doing that, but I do recommend downloading Better Fantasy. One of the other reasons that we love it is they also offer prop betting. So if you're in a state that hasn't legalized gambling yet, you can get in some prop bets on Better Fantasy. Like we said, it's totally free to play. Download today for iPhone and Android and use the code THECUT when you create your account to receive an additional 1,000 Better credits when you start your account. Thank you to Better Fantasy for sponsoring this episode of the Cut Podcast Network. All right, time to talk about Week 13. And as always, guys, we talk through the injuries and the sad stuff first before we get to the good stuff. So first thing on our show doc here is the Logan Thomas news. Now, I did just see it flash across the screen that Ron Rivera was not very definitive over the length of this injury. I did see an unconfirmed report that they didn't confirm an ACL tear. And so, Randy, did you see anything regarding the knee
so
injury?
they still haven't disclosed necessarily what it is, but apparently there's damage to the knee, but there's no tear. So he could play this year. We really don't know.
Yeah.
But I would wait till you hear the full story, but I would look to kind of move on.
Yeah.
If it's a redraft.
And ultimately, in redraft, we're a week away from some playoffs or some playoffs start this week. You're not going to want to rely on a guy with maybe not a torn up knee, but a bad knee, really, anyway.
Yeah, I don't see how. I don't see how he plays this week at the best.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I agree. Another person that's definitely not playing this week is Kenyon Drake. I actually just saw a post where he ripped the NFL for their handling of, taunting versus guys actually getting twisted and rolled up on and things like that. Kenyon Drake was at the bottom of a pile and he got twisted all up. I believe he broke his ankle completely, right?
Yeah, I believe so. It's a technique that's kind of taught when tackling. But it is you could see it as dirty, like I kind of do, but I played mostly offense, so I guess I'm a little bit biased. Wrapping up and then swinging your legs in and then pulling back, you're definitely trying. You're trying to stop the person's momentum. First off, let's say that because that's what the non-dirty part of it is. But there's a good chance you end up hurting someone.
Yeah. And especially in that, like, I think this one was a little less dirty and a little more just a terrible situation. Like, they were on top of a body when it happened, too. But
Yeah.
not good for Kenyon Drake, who dealt with that type of injury, that exact injury actually coming out of college. So,
and he got injured last year with something similar tackle. So
yeah, it's too bad.
he's been out of shape for sure.
Yeah. Next, Tyrod Taylor. He tore ligaments in his left wrist. He has been deemed week to week. Randy, do you expect that Davis Mills will start for the rest of the year?
I think he should. I don't understand. I honestly don't understand why Davis Mills wasn't starting since he got the start. Like since Tyrod got hurt. Unless they kind of like promised him so many starts or something. Like it's just Tyrod's better. Like let's not make any mistake about this, but one's a rookie. You're going into a draft where you're going to have a top pick, and most likely that top pick isn't going to be a quarterback because they don't deserve it. So you have this quarterback, you have to deem if he's better or as good as someone you're going to take in the second or in the third, or you trade up in the late first to get some guy. I mean, you have to figure all that out, and having him play his backup isn't the smart thing. I think he's going to be out there for the rest of the season, and he's doing good. Like for his draft capital for this situation, I think he's doing good. It's just, yeah, he's not an elite quarterback. I mean, just plain simple.
No. What he was able to do against this Patriots defense, looking back on it, remarkable.
Patriots?
Yeah, Davis Mills.
Oh, yeah. Not this week. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so Davis Mills, I think, ultimately is going to end up a career backup, but I think he's a high-level one, and I think that them not giving him a shot throughout the year, after Tyrod came back, I think that was always silly, like you said. I mean, there's no reason not to evaluate the rookie. Now, you could also say maybe they do have long-term plans for him, and they didn't want to kind of ruin the rookie either, but I don't see that as a thing,
Even if they do have long-term plans for him, it's still not. This isn't the smart way to do it.
Yeah,
because if that's the thing, you should have brought in some vet the week Tyrod got hurt. They just played him instead.
That's very true. Yeah, and ultimately, Davis Mills is probably their starter next year, unless they're able to, get like a Carson Strong in the second round, and that's your starter for. I mean, that's your franchise guy then.
Yeah.
And if the knee doesn't hold up, and there's a lot of things. So Davis Mills hopefully gets this opportunity now with Tyrod hurt. Next, Adam Thielen has a high ankle sprain. They haven't determined exactly how long he will be out. I think he's doing another MRI tomorrow or today if you're listening to this on the podcast form to determine the severity. But high ankle sprains are typically at least 2 to 4 weeks, I would say.
Yeah.
More times 4 to 6, especially for.
Yeah, but 4 to 6 is like, I mean, it goes on a grading scale. So, again, they haven't told us what that is yet, so we don't know. But I think it's safe to say he's out this week no matter what.
Yeah, very true. Next, who is this? Who are we talking about here?
Oh, I think it auto-corrected. See how it's Glenn on?
It's yeah, Mike Lennon. yeah. So that's funny. I was like, who? Cordy Glenn? Like, I don't know who we're talking about. Yeah, Mike Lennon. He is currently in the protocol. Daniel Jones seems to not be. Well, they've kind of deemed him out already for this week, and so Jake Fromm is going to be starting for the New York Giants this week.
Which means play whoever defense is facing the Giants.
Yeah, pretty much. I will say, Jake Fromm can't be too much worse than Daniel Jones or Mike Lennon. So good for Jake Fromm finally getting his shot.
Yeah, about that.
Who do they play this week?
Just the Chargers.
Yeah, he might struggle.
I mean, if Joey Bosa is out, I guess it's better, but
yeah, but I don't think he will be. He could have returned to that football game, and they just decided not to put him back in. So yeah, Jake Fromm. Shout out Jake Fromm. Justin Fields will also be returning this week. So I just find that hilarious that Jake Fromm and Justin Fields will be starting in the NFL this week.
The other big thing for this is I don't know if you could trust any Giants pass catcher, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't anyway,
No, but I think some people are forced to play like Galladay or Ingram or Slayton, I guess, because that's the only person that's left. But even if Shepard comes back, I'm not like all too happy playing him with third string quarterback. And
now Galladay also got hurt in this football game. I don't know his status yet. It was, I believe, a hamstring.
In my opinion, it also lowers Saquon yet again, just like I had him for this week. He's going to have to feed off of like 10 dump down catches. They're going to stack the box against him and not let him beat them.
Yeah, it's super unfortunate. I saw someone talking about Saquon and how he's still on a per touch basis as elite as he used to be, or at least close to it. It's just he's not getting touches, and I understand it. I also wouldn't force feed my stud running back touches when this season's pretty much lost and everyone's going to clear house next year. So next one, Corey Davis, done for the year. He's having core muscle surgery tomorrow. Super unfortunate. I think Corey Davis had a pretty disappointing year. We expected him to kind of take the alpha role for this offense, and there were times where he did.
I think he did early on, and then he got banged up. Zach Wilson got banged up. And it's just kind of went down from there. And alongside that, Elijah Moore doing what a lot hoped he would do near the end of the year.
Yeah, and Elijah Moore has been electric, and it's exciting. And I still think that Jets fans should be excited about that duo at receiver. I think they need another weapon, preferably a tight end, because Ryan Griffin isn't it. But
I was going to say, I don't really know if the next receiver is going to be that big a deal for them. Because I got the short to intermediate guy that has deep threat potential, then a possession guy who's a big body. I mean, that duo itself can do a lot. So you need to dial in on the line, dial in at tight end, and then just get a little bit of depth. But a veteran here or there is going to be helpful.
Trey McBride is my dream draft pick for the Jets this year in the mid rounds because he's George Kittle 2.0. And I'm throwing that out there right now. And we'll talk about that in a few months, I'm sure.
Baby kit.
Yeah, baby kit. Next, Elijah Mitchell is in concussion protocol. Someone noted that he's been hurt 3 times already this year. Do we think that he's an injury-prone type of running back, a la Raheem Mostert? Randy, what do you think?
I don't think he's injury-prone. I mean, he's just getting the ball 25 times a game, pounding his head straight through. His injury's been minor, too. Where every other back in this team has been kind of major. So,
and ultimately, like, I think he's in concussion protocol because he was already in concussion protocol. He got cleared for the game, but after, like you said, banging your head against defenders for a ton of minutes, because he played virtually the whole game too. So, all right, that'll do it for the injuries. I think we probably could have added Kenny Golladay, but we talked about him. So, and that doesn't even matter.
Remember he got hurt, to be honest.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. Giants, hopefully Tony comes back and don't play him. Don't play him. That's my advice there. All right, let's get to some of the highlights from week 13. And the first guy that we need to talk about is Gardner Minshew, and really the whole Philadelphia Eagles team. So Gardner Minshew went 20 of 25 for 242 yards and 2 touchdowns. He added 11 yards on the ground, so very anti-Jalen Hurts line. However, the Eagles went off in this game, scored 33 points. It was against the Jets, but Randy, do you think Gardner Minshew should be starting for this team moving forward?
No. I mean, there's a reason he's going to be a career backup. This is what he does. He's going to come in and he's going to play a good game. He deserves to be paid for the next 8 to 10 years just because he's going to continue to do this. There's going to be a time where he probably gets another shot, a la like Ryan Fitzpatrick, but this is his life, and the future is going to be Hurts, at least for the immediate future through the next season, I would assume, unless they have some bad team management, which, let's be honest, is very likely. So,
yeah, I mean, they could very well draft a quarterback. They have 3 first-round picks. As soon as Carson Wentz takes a snap in 2 weeks, the Colts are on bye this week, but once Carson Wentz takes, I believe, like 2 to 3 more snaps, I believe he has crossed that 75% threshold. So,
yeah.
So that first-round pick will go over to them. But regarding Gardner Minshew, yeah, I mean, I think he could be a starter elsewhere. It's not for this
he
team.
would start for the Texans right now. Like, is that what we're talking about? Like,
would you take him over Heineke?
No.
I think it's close, and I think this version
we've seen
that we
more
saw,
consistency from Heineke.
Yeah, which is saying something because he's pretty inconsistent too. I think Heineke has more arm talent, to be completely honest. Minshew is what he is, but he's a fun player, and I know the city of Philadelphia is really rooting for him. But I'm telling you guys, Eagles fans, Jalen had a bad game heading into this injury.
He would have had a good game.
Yeah, he would have had an outstanding game. People were like, "Oh, Dallas Goedert managers are really loving Gardner Minshew." I said, "Well, if you watch the game, it was 2 busted coverages. Dallas Goedert was wide open."
And Hurts throws a ton to Goddard as well. Let's not make this a thing.
Yeah,
except Gardner threw once to Devonta.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's Gardner was an ultimate game manager that just moved the ball efficiently against a bad defense, and so Jalen Hurts would have had 50 fantasy points. But the Eagles are on track they're, I believe, the 8th seed in the NFC right now. They still have a shot at making the playoffs, and I think that's going to be on the back of Jalen Hurts when he comes back.
I think Minshew did enough that if Hurts isn't 100% going into the week, you can rest him. But I think they're on bye, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, they are.
So, yeah, still the same thing for next week, but I feel like Hurts will be 100%.
And then say your playoffs start week 15, so you're going to have Jalen Hurts coming back for the football team. I almost said the old name. Wow, I haven't done that
for
in a long time.
Football team.
Yeah, that was rough. So he gets football team, Giants, football team. So football team has played a lot better defensively, but that's a team that Jalen Hurts could probably take advantage of, and you might have the QB1 over that 3-week stretch if you have Jalen Hurts. So hold out hope, folks. All right, next up, the Lions. This should have been the first one probably. I should have skipped down to the Lions, but the Detroit Lions won their first game of the season on a walk-off touchdown against the worst busted coverage I can remember. I think it was Cameron Dantzler. He was sitting back. He was like, I'm not getting beat in the back of this end zone. And you know what? He didn't. He didn't get beat at the back of the end zone. He got beat right in front of his face. But an incredible – as I was watching this football game, I was saying, okay, Jared Goff looks like something today. He looks like he's on a mission. It's a divisional game. It was exciting to watch. And that was largely on the back of Amon St. Brown being a target hog. 12 targets in this game, 10 catches, 86 yards, and he did catch that game-winning touchdown. Do we think that this is something that we could see out of Amon-Ra moving forward now that we've seen the breakout a couple of times this year, but do you feel like this was the true breakout?
I think so, but it's one of those I'd like to see it one more week kind of thing. Mainly because we've seen, like last week, we saw Reynolds have a good first half at least, and a decent second half. We've seen Khalif Raymond have breakout games. Most of Khalif's, though, kind of came without Goff. He only had like one really good game with Goff, I believe. But Amon-Ra should be the focal point of this offense, especially with Swift out in the receiving game alongside Hockenson, just because Hockenson's getting all the coverage. So someone else has to do something, and Amon-Ra is very, very talented. We saw his whole repertoire there. The only thing we didn't see is like a jump ball in the end zone catch. That's it.
Yeah. Now I will say, we're going to talk about Amon-Ra a little bit later, and so I don't want to get too deep into it, but their remaining schedule for at least the fantasy football season is not great. So they get the Broncos first, which is not a good matchup at all for them. But then the Cardinals and then Falcons and Seahawks. So Falcons, Seahawks, rounds it out. And
but
make
if
it okay.
if they're going to be behind,
True.
could be more targets for Amon. So
it's true. But yeah, and shout out to Ian Rappaport for retweeting the video of Jared Goff's girlfriend. All of football Twitter was a little too horny on that one, I think. Everyone was just retweeting that. Like, yeah, it was good for the Lions, but we know what you're doing, everyone. Yeah. Shout out the Lions, though. Shout out Dan Campbell. He also dedicated a game ball to the folks that were in the Michigan school shooting. So that was cool.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good guy. We've been on here saying that we're rooting for him. We just know that the inevitable for this, and he makes every week he makes coaching mistakes.
He made some in this one too.
He did.
Jared Goff. Jared Goff almost.
He called a timeout that gave the Vikings a chance to score late in the first half. It ended up working out for them, barely, but like, still, it's terrible job coaching on that. But then he pulled it together second half, and good for them. I'm very happy they won. I don't root for any team to go winless because that's just terrible.
Yeah, and we know as Browns fans. So
yeah,
that season sucked. All right, we'll talk about the other side of the ball when we get to the lowlights of Week 13. But so this guy kind of he qualifies in both, but for fantasy football, Taysom Hill was a highlight. He had 28 fantasy points. He was pretty bad throwing the football, and by pretty bad I mean like very bad. 19 of 41, 264 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 picks. He added 101 yards on the ground, and that'll do it. That will do it. This is what we talk about with Taysom Hill. He is a locked and loaded QB1 that should not start at quarterback in the NFL ever. He's terrible.
Sorry for you on. I don't think he throws 4 picks every game. No. There's a good chance of 1, maybe 2, but that's the thing though. If you see how many points he had, he's a quarterback 1 easy. That was with 4 picks. Andy hurt his finger.
Yeah, it was it was not fun to watch though. We saw some of the things that we've talked about. Like, I know there's a certain faction of people that think that Taysom Hill can be a starter in the NFL, and don't get me wrong, like he's a replacement level guy. Like he's a decent backup quarterback in a pinch, and when you can scheme around him. His arm strength is just bad. His arm strength to the intermediate levels of the field is okay, and I think I talked about that last week. But just not fun to watch. But for fantasy football, he is a QB1 every single week moving forward. So he gets the Jets next week or this week, and then Bucks, Dolphins.
Yeah, so, I mean, we're also not fully confirmed he can fully play yet. It's assumed that he will because he finished the game after the early injury, but still, it's kind of a major injury.
Yeah, he has mallet finger, right? It was the same thing that Russell Wilson had.
But no, it's like I think the exact quote is it's nowhere near as severe.
Yeah. Well, you could even tell, like, because Russ's finger was literally like.
Oh, it was inoperable. It was not inoperable. It
was in need of operation.
Unoperational? God, that was terrible.
Dysfunctional, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't want your help.
Fair. More highlights. Just some monstrous wide receiver days. First one that we'll talk about is Chris Godwin. He had 17 targets. He had 15 catches for 143 yards. He scored 30 fantasy points, and he didn't score a touchdown. You called this on our show last week, and I still had my doubts that they were just going to let Brady turn around and throw the ball 50 times, and I believe they did that. I believe he threw 51, 52.
Something like that. He had the 21 completions at halftime for his thrive line.
Yeah, 51 attempts, 38 of 51, 368, 4 touchdowns. He did throw a pick. I believe he's going to finish.
It's a very bad pick, but he threw 5 touchdowns basically because of it. So
the pick, it's so funny It's so funny getting on Twitter after things like that. So I hopped on and I said, Tom, buddy, what you doing? And someone was like, why are they trying to run plays? I was like, okay, yeah, you're right. Byron Leftwich should not have run a passing or a screen pass here. However, Tom's got to see him. Like that was
that's
what
it
that
looked like
was.
he threw to him. Like that's
I
how
know.
bad it was.
It was a nice catch too.
Yeah.
Shout out Marlon Davidson, who I don't think is actually that good, but he gets to play a lot, so that's fun. But yeah, Chris Godwin. This is kind of the thing, though. We talked about. I mean, you specifically said on Thursday's show, you said I am not confident in starting Bucks wide receivers because I don't know what kind of week it's going to be. Well, in this football game, it was, we did get a good game out of Mike Evans, but when Antonio Brown eventually comes back from his suspension / injuries / everything, I know the season will be over, but that was where like you're confused about which wide receiver to start.
Well, even then, I mean, Gronk had 2 touchdowns the week before. He got all the targets and touchdowns, and the receivers barely did anything. Evans was okay, if I remember right. This week, Gronk had the 2 touchdowns here. Evans was pretty good, and Godwin was this. And the week before was a Fournette week. Like we kind of specified it's going to be about matchups, and this one I knew it would be Brady. And I just couldn't tell because Gronk had a good matchup. Evans had a good matchup. Godwin had a good matchup. Technically, Fournette out of the backfield had a good matchup. So, at that point, if you did a stack on DFS with Godwin and him, even Gronk, good for you. It's so hard to tell.
Yeah. We should probably talk about Leonard Fournette really quickly. Because they've turned Leonard Fournette into a workhorse running back. He had 8 targets in this game. He caught 7 balls, and he's been doing that for quite a few weeks. I saw a take this evening. I don't remember who it was. I'm sorry. But it was that Leonard Fournette should be ranked ahead of Ezekiel Elliott in Dynasty. And that was the face I made. And then, I started looking into it, and I think someone provided the context that career touch wise, Zeke is over like 400 more touches than Fournette in their careers as well. Because I believe it's like basically 2 full seasons worth, I guess, is what he is over. So when you start to think about it, like, yeah, if the Bucks commit to Leonard Fournette, if they give him a contract, that's when I would say, well, I guess maybe like you could rank them similarly. But we still don't know. Like, we do know what the Bucks running back room is this year. We know that Lenny's going to be this. After that, though, like, do we think they run it back with Lombardi, Lenny?
I think there's a chance, but I mean, you got Rojo's probably gone next year. Gio's probably back in a limited role. There's, I mean, this is a team that roughly will have like 1 or 2 holes to fill in this coming free agency and draft. So who's to say they don't bring back just Lenny and then take a shot at one of these guys coming into the NFL this year. And then midway through the year, it flips and the rookie gets the touches because he's the hot hand and he's not fumbling. And, I just don't see them committing to Fournette for the next 3 years or something. So for that, I definitely am not going to put him over Zeke, who, I mean, I think is going to be a Cowboy until he retires. So,
yeah, that's fair. And I don't think I would either. It's just it's an interesting thing to think about.
Also, Zeke has looked very good this year when he hasn't been banged up.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of people were like, well, he didn't do well this. I mean, look at him. He doesn't look like the same Zeke. Well, yeah, I mean, he's hurt. He's not going to look the same.
I do want to put it out there that Zeke is just exponentially more talented than Leonard Fournette.
Yes.
Just as a runner, as a pass catcher. Lenny's just doing it off volume, which is fine. Like, that's good.
Well, that's what he did with the Jaguars, too. So
exactly. And so they've unlocked how to maximize him. But next guy that we're going to talk about is Justin Jefferson. So Justin Jefferson in this football game, I looked down. I was studying while this game was on, and I was watching this game pretty closely. And then I looked up again and I was like, oh, yeah, Justin Jefferson's just killing it. 14 targets, 11 catches, 182 yards, and a touchdown. He scored about 35 fantasy points, depending on your format. Is Justin Jefferson the best wide receiver in the NFL right now?
No. I don't think I'll ever say that, though. Like, I mean, obviously there's going to be a chance, but, like, he's just not all around necessarily for me. He's perfect in this role. It's just pure wide receiver wise. I don't think I'll ever have him one, as long as guys like Hopkins are around, or Julio for the longest time, and there's more. It's just
I think
Devontae Adams is probably the best in the NFL right now.
I think Jefferson's the closest thing we've seen to Devontae Adams since Devontae entered the league.
Maybe
I think
he's very good. He's going to be a wide receiver one in fantasy till he's probably 32. Like there's no question there. It's just
and that would give him 10 more years of this. He's 22 years old right now, which is incredible. What him and Jamar Chase did at LSU is still absurd. Jamar Chase made this kid look bad, and I think. Do you think Jefferson's better than Chase right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, me too. I do too. I think that might be like a hot take. Maybe not after the last couple of weeks, but yeah. So Justin Jefferson, very, very good. Next guy that we're going to talk about, Deontay Johnson, one of Randy's favorites. I know he's excited to talk about him. 11 targets, 8 catches, 105 yards, and 2 touchdowns. In a Pittsburgh Steelers win, should have been 3. He dropped and it should. So
that, it was a tough catch regardless, but yes, he should have caught that.
That was what, a 40-yard play-ish?
Yeah.
We'll call. So he would have been at 9 catches, 145, and 3 touchdowns, which would have been the wide receiver one on the week.
Easy.
Which he's close. I mean, he's a top 5 receiver this week. Incredible performance. Do we think that Ben can play as well as Ben played in this game against the Ravens, though, for the rest of the year? Do you think it matters?
Probably not, but it doesn't matter for Deontay. So
that's fair. Yeah.
This line has started to fail them, especially against halfway Ds that are good at defenses. So Najee's starting to get big losses in his value week by week. Definitely not long term, but every time that happens, Deontay's value skyrockets. He's going to go to the Pro Bowl. He deserves it. Unfortunately, as I talked to Zach, his former teammate, tonight while we played Halo, the secret's out. There's no more getting Deontay at a discount. It sucks for both of us. We're really pissed, but we're so happy for. Like, he is so talented. He has become a pure all-around receiver. Finally, the drops are gone, even though he had a drop in this game. But there was the only thing holding him back last year. Those are gone. He's an elite talent, a all-pro wide receiver, in my opinion. And this is just yet another game of his dominance. It's just more touchdowns this game than he's usually accustomed to in games with Big Ben. And we know Ben's not going to be there next year. So Kenny Pickett, Carson Strong, Sam Howell, I'm liking the upside.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, a lot of people are saying, like, well, this isn't a good situation for a rookie quarterback to be in. Yes, it is. I know that the offensive line...
They have to work on the offensive line. That's it.
And that's it. Yep, exactly. And they can do that via free agency because they'll have more cap because Ben will be gone.
Yeah, true.
So
and
they'll
Juju will be gone.
Yeah, exactly. So,
but
plus
they have Najee, Freiermuth, Deontay, Claypool, that defense.
Yeah. So this is one of the best situations for a rookie quarterback. Now, there's a chance that they don't even go out and get a rookie because they see the window and they go out and get Aaron Rodgers and Deontay Johnson.
Yeah,
with Aaron Rodgers.
There is a chance there. There's a chance for Rodgers.
What about Carr? Do you think they would do that? Do you think the Raiders would do that?
I don't know if the Raiders would do it. So I'm not going to rule out anything for the Raiders here. I mean, they're a playoff contending team. Let's not get this wrong, but they're an up and down team no matter what. You add in that Gruden's gone, so there's going to be turnover for the entire coaching staff. Best case, the defensive coordinator stays. There's a chance Mayock's going in the front office. And when stuff like that happens, when you have a quarterback that will be on his last year of his contract, I believe, next year, he's expensive. He's not young. He's very, very good. It's just he's not that. He's got the most passing yards in the league still, I believe.
He does, yeah. It's I think they're going to move on from Carr. That's kind of because
if it's me, I definitely go one more year because just looking at this draft class, I'm not. If I'm a GM coming in, I'm not like, you know what, I need to draft one of these guys.
See, I'm going full tank. So I'm saying like
they won't do that.
I know they won't.
They have young stars already. It's some not super young like Waller, so they really can't do that.
I hear you, but that's what I would do. I would go full tank and then try to get like a Bryce Young, or a CJ Stroud, or someone for the next year. But
yeah, but in your scenario, maybe they go with Mariota next year and they trade Carr, and you're going to trade Carr for a decent haul. So
a very decent haul. I think the Eagles might be in on that too. They shouldn't be, but they do stupid shit. All right.
I'll take 2 firsts from the Eagles this year.
Yeah.
You kidding me?
Yeah, that'd be nice. That would be nice. All right, let's get into our low lights segment. But first, really quickly, the Patriots did win the football game, and Mack Jones went 2 for 3 for 19 yards, and he had 5 carries for -3 yards, and he fumbled the ball. He had -0.54 fantasy points in a normal quarterbacking league, and so I really want to look up his Scott Fishbowl. Yeah, because
he probably didn't do that bad, though, because he only had 1 incomplete pass.
I know. One of the strangest games I've ever seen. I do, before we get into the lowlights, the one thing I want to say about Mack Jones right now, because everyone is calling me a hater, this was the best thing that could have possibly happened to Mack Jones, because that Bills defense would have exposed him, because they would have just stacked the box like they did, but the weather gave them an excuse to not have him throw the ball, and they still won the freaking game. The Patriots are going to the freaking Super Bowl with Mack Jones as their quarterback. That's absurd to me. I don't think there's any.
There's a chance. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion by any means. But
I do. I think this defense is just going to go berserk, man. All right. We need to get into the lowlights so we can get out of here
quickly
on time. Yeah. So first thing, the Minnesota Vikings. Obviously, we talked about how the Lions won, but really the Lions, yeah, they won. But
the Lions dominated early.
Yeah, the Vikings lost this game, and Kirk Cousins specifically, you look at his stats and you say, oh, he played really well. No, he didn't. He played very, very poorly. He missed a lot of open throws. He did go 30 of 40 in this football game against the Lions, where he should go 30 of 40, 340 yards, 2 touchdowns. He fumbled the ball. I think the Zimmer era is about done. I think if the Vikings lose a couple games here down the stretch, I think he's done. So.
Well, and that's the same thing we just talked about. If the Zimmer era is done, I assume that means the Cousins era is done.
If it can be, that's the problem. Like, who's trading for $45 million of mediocre quarterback play? I'd rather have Carr by a lot.
Oh, by far. Yeah, I'd rather have Carr. But I mean, you look at, we just talked about him, Steelers. He's going to work on the Steelers.
That's true.
They don't. They will have the cap, I believe, next year too. I think they're at least midway through, I believe. They got rid of a lot of the big time deals, and then you add on Ben's contract getting rid of too.
Yeah, that's a viable. I mean, a lot of people are floating out Kirk Cousins to the Browns.
That's not an upgrade.
It's really not. But I don't want to talk about Baker Mayfield until next week when we have to. So, but
well, if the Ravens keep playing like this,
it's true.
Might be in a good way.
Yeah, I hope so. I sure hope so. But yeah, Vikings bad in this football game. They play down to their competition. They always have. When Zimmer's gone, I'm excited to see what happens, because I think they get a younger offensive-minded head coach that really takes advantage of having Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, and Justin Jefferson in a way that makes sense. So
Yeah, they're stacked. They're going to run 2 tight end sets out next year with 2 very capable tight ends, apparently. And Jesus.
Yeah. Conklin's good, man.
Yeah.
All right.
He's not. Irv Smith is better. For me, no doubt. But Conklin's proved himself this year to be a valuable asset. So.
Yeah, I agree. Next low light. The Baltimore Ravens, just in general, I think we could have said Lamar Jackson here too. He's trying to play Superman. I saw one Ravens fan calling for his benching in the first quarter of this football game, and I was dying. I said that's the silliest thing I've read in months, man. I don't know what you're talking about,
but it's the same thing we talked about with like the Chiefs and Mahomes earlier this year, where there seems to be a game plan now. I think there seems to be a game plan to attack Lamar. I mean, because Lamar is the Ravens' offense.
He is.
You can't let him throw up the seam, and you got to blitz on important downs because he is not handling it well currently. But if you blitz, you have to get there. You have to hit him because he will get away and he's going to make huge plays. But I honestly, I think next week, if they play that same defense with a couple more blitzes added in and just a pure JOK spy kind of attack on Lamar, I think the Browns defense played them perfectly, and we'll see if it works again. The only thing that really hurt the Browns defense was the option game.
Yeah. And here's the thing. The Steelers defense, if they could tackle, the Ravens aren't scoring 19 points in this game, which the overall gist of what we were about to talk about was the last second decision to go for 2 when you have the best kicker in football heading into overtime.
Yeah. And in my opinion, I would say you just had an incredible drive on offense. Definitely your best drive of the whole day. In what was a minute or something like that. I think your defense has played well. I understand Marlon Humphrey was hurt at that point, but I think if it's me, I take the chance going to overtime. I appreciate the ballsy decision as much as anyone else, but I take that to overtime if that's my game, just personally.
Yeah. And I was talking about it with someone today. I said, maybe they're considering, we've been in a lot of close games. We've had to play until the final whistle every single week. We haven't really been able to take a game off. We've gone to overtime a couple of times, and we can't afford that heading down the stretch. Well, you just lost a football game, and you haven't guaranteed your divisional title by any means. This is the most wide open division in all of football.
Yep. You just gave the Steelers life, too, with the win.
Yeah, and ultimately, we've mentioned the Browns a couple of times. The Browns' playoff chances from this result and the Bengals result, but their playoff chances went from 11% to 20% on the bye week. Like, if the Ravens kick that extra point and then they win that game, the Browns are virtually eliminated.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. The biggest thing with that is Tucker's making the extra point. And once you get to overtime, there's probably going to be a point where you only need a field goal. You're winning the game because Tucker's making it. There's no question.
Yep. Yeah. And I know the Steelers offense played okay in this game, but the Ravens still found ways to stop them. And I think even if the Steelers get the ball first, you hold them to a field goal and then you can go tie or win the football game. So I respect the call. I'm never going to say don't go for the win, and if Lamar executes it, Andrews gets in. So I guess you can argue that it was the right decision.
Honestly, it was the right play call for that situation. And I think Lamar pretty much did almost all he could. Honestly, he made the right move. He didn't run outside to draw attention to it. He cut inside. It's just you have a superstar on the other side that made his play, and then Lamar just threw it too hard.
Yeah.
Play it simple.
He does that. We should have put Russell Wilson's freaking dart to Gerald Everett. Did you see it? Where he was 5 yards away and he just freaking nailed Gerald Everett in the hands and it turned into an interception. And touch is good, quarterbacks. Russell Wilson forgets that sometimes. Next team that we're going to talk about that I just actually mentioned is the Cincinnati Bengals. They looked atrocious to start this football game, and then they battled back, and then they looked atrocious again. I think they spent a lot of energy trying to come back in this football game, and then Joe Burrow's injury really kind of put the nail in the coffin. I tweeted out that Cincinnati is a fraud playoff team right now. I think that they are still outside of this game. They were punching above their weight defensively. I don't think that they're that good of a team defensively based on talent. Their schemes have been really good.
Yeah, their front four has been playing pretty lights out, and that's really what's been keeping them in games. But it seems like they lost their middle linebacker for the season, just because it's a short season left. Secondary is not that great, so I think there's going to be a little bit more exposure, maybe a little bit easier to run against them now. But I wouldn't be shocked. I don't know off the top of my head who they play over the next few weeks, but I know they're going to have to play the Browns. One of these games coming up soon. Oh my god! Oh my god!
Their schedule is brutal, dude.
No, dude, it's brutal. But just think of what I just talked about, though. Running the ball. It's going to be easier on them right now. They face 49ers next week, followed by the Broncos, followed by the Ravens, followed by the Chiefs, who on occasion can run a really good game, and then the Browns the end of the season. So if it's coming last week of the season, us gets Bengals, winner gets the 7th seed or 6th seed or something, I'm liking the chances.
I know, man. And I hate that I'm liking the chances. I lost all hope. And now I have the hope.
Yeah, it was so weird to talk, especially we did it on Thursday, I believe. I don't know if it was on show or not, but Sean was the typical Browns fan, kind of down in the dumps about the Browns' future for this season. And I was like, hey, yeah, you know we're a half game out of the playoffs, right? And he's like, what, really? And I'm like, yeah, you guys are just
I know.
Suicidal, it felt like. Just calm down.
Yeah, it was. Hey, man, it's been pretty rough, simply because of the way that the Browns have lost.
And you go into that bye week the way they lost that week before. You're gonna need a big week coming out this week. A win will make everyone happy. So we'll see.
That is true. We already talked about Taysom Hill as a highlight and a
I just wanted to put him on both.
Yeah, it's fair. But again, Taysom, good for fantasy. Start him up. If you haven't picked him up and if he's available, get him on your roster, even if you aren't going to start him. Play a little bit of
because there's a chance he doesn't play this week, but I still want him on my team for the future.
Yeah. Well, and like my boss at work, he said, I picked up Taysom and I'm not starting him because I have Kyler. I said, that's a brilliant move. And his, I think the team that he played ended up having it was Jalen Hurts. So they had to start Gardner Minshew, which actually worked out. But but
they would have rather started Taysom. And it's like, well, but they wanted to start Taysom this week, Thursday, whatever. But still, it's a smart move to, if you have the roster spots to burn, just take that top level guy, especially at this point of the waivers and everything. Take handcuffs. There should not be a handcuff on the waiver wire. Period.
Yeah. Absolutely. We've seen that too many times, especially in the fantasy football playoffs.
Well, Vikings, this is the first game without Dalvin. It doesn't look like he's going to be out. He's definitely out this week. I think that's it. That's what they're saying. But we saw this last year with Dalvin. He's out of game. Madison ended up getting banged up in that second game. It was just, a guy that disappointed for 1 week and then was good the next week. But it's the point of the year where you're not going to win this league by picking up a third string wide receiver that's going to have one good game and that you're not going to play him. Just get, redraft leagues, period. Just get handcuffs for running backs. Plain and simple.
Yeah. And that'll do it for the waiver wire wish list. No, I'm just kidding.
We'll go over them, but this is exactly what I'm talking about. Like,
exactly, yeah, 100%.
The best guys on here are guys that you're probably not going to start.
Yep, and that is why this will be a short segment. So before we get to it, we also want to mention that this episode is brought to you by Thrive Fantasy. I talked to, well, maybe I didn't talk about it on this episode, but I played all unders for the Monday Night Football game, and I won some money tonight. Shout out to the weather report. Always look at weathers before you make prop bets. But Thrive Fantasy is the prop betting. It is an incredibly fun app. And if you use promo code The Cut, they will match your first deposit instantly up to $100 with a minimum deposit of $20. It's our favorite thing to do. Randy and I send each other our Thrive Fantasy lineups literally every single slate that comes up, and just kind of give some feedback on them. And it's fun. So download that. It's on all the app stores. Shout out Thrive Fantasy. All right, let's talk about these waiver guys. I mean, it's not exciting, and I can argue maybe two of them. But the first guy that we're going to talk about is KJ Osborne. So the reason we're talking about KJ Osborne is there's a chance that this is like a wide receiver handcuff in the fact that Adam Thielen could miss the rest of the fantasy season. So you look at what KJ did this last week. He did play on 92% of snaps, which is his highest snap count of the season because Thielen went down pretty early. 7 targets, 4 catches, 47 yards, and he did catch a touchdown that kind of helped his fantasy football day. But the Vikings do get Pittsburgh, Chicago, Rams, Green Bay. Not great matchups for wide receivers across the board. So,
however, these are worse matchups for Jefferson because now without Thielen, he's going to get double teamed, period.
Yeah.
Especially by the Steelers. But, I mean, we know the Bears have one good corner. That's who's on Jefferson. Rams, we know Ramsey's on Jefferson. Packers, if it gets to that game without Thielen as well, they're definitely going to go cover Jefferson. So I think Osborne is one of the people I'd actually value picking up. I don't know if I've full started him. I think it's going to come down to like rankings this week, picking apart on a flex. But I mean, he's better. He's going to be better than most because he's going to get targets, and at least he's going to be on the field completely.
Yeah, it's very true. That's very true. See, we can sell ourselves on some of these guys.
Yeah, I know. There's 5 people out here, bro. Like we left off a ton of people because we're just like, pass.
It's very true. Next guy though, Davis Mills, Superflex take only. He probably is rostered if you're playing Superflex. Just, I mean, maybe not. Maybe someone
got dropped when Tyrod came back.
Yeah. So it was Superflex for 2 quarterback leagues. I would just add Davis Mills simply to take away an option.
I would just add it for this week because there's 4 teams I'd buy and they're bigger teams. I mean, we know. I mean, you take off 4 quarterbacks. There's only 28 this week. If you're in a 12-team, 14-team league, that's enormous.
Yeah, very true. And ultimately, like that's that defensive thing. Even if you don't plan to start him, just roster him and keep him away from your opponent. Next guy, Jameson Crowder. Do you have interest in Jameson Crowder with the Corey Davis news and knowing that he did see 6 targets this week and saw also one of his highest snap shares of the year?
Yeah, I do have value for Crowder this week. You also added like Griffin, I believe, was in the concussion protocol for tight end. Yeah. So it's basically Crowder and more with Tevin Coleman. So
yeah, that's very true. I'm interested in him. I mean, he scored 10 fantasy points in this football game, and
I think he's going to get you at least 10 points every week.
Yeah, but again, more of a defensive thing. Stash him if you don't plan to start him, and make sure that you're keeping 10 points away from someone else if you have an empty roster spot. So, next guy, we already talked about him, but Amon St. Brown, the 12 targets, 10 catches, 86 yards, and the game-winning touchdown. Only 22% rostered. I mentioned the tough matchups, but you mentioned that they could be down in these games. I'd add him. I wouldn't start him this week. Would you have interest in starting him even this upcoming week?
Maybe at flex, in a deeper flex league.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't think there's a world in which you have to start Amon-Ra, but 2021 has been a season full of, oh shit, here's who I'm starting this week.
Yeah, and it happens by the day too, because more injuries pop up during the week. I know that the week I played you in one of our dynasty leagues a couple weeks ago, I think it is now, where I literally told you like on a Wednesday of the week, I was like, well, you won, so hopefully I could field enough wide receivers this week. Like everyone was hurt, and I think you probably could have at least one or two teams run into that. There's some big injuries that keep happening, so even if it's just for a week.
Plus, you've got Keenan Allen on the COVID list. Like, COVID list things are still happening.
Yeah. And if he's going to get 10, 12 targets a game, I don't care if he catches 5 of them. That's the guy I want on my roster.
It's very true. Very true. And then the last guy that we're going to talk about is a guy that we already talked about in Tevin Coleman, 48% rostered, but had his best day, I believe. I mean, he's had a couple of.
I don't think he had his best. I think he had his most work, but not his best day.
Yeah. So he had 11 carries, 58 yards. He looked more explosive than normal. 3 catches for 20 yards. He kind of looked like vintage Falcons Tevin Coleman out there at times, in my opinion. He looks pretty healthy. So
he looked good. And they're only using him really. It's just him and Ty Johnson basically at this point, and they're not using Ty. So
yeah. It's very true. That's what happens when you drop passes and you fumble footballs. Ty Johnson, pretty disappointed because he's probably more talented as a runner. It's kind of a Rojo effect that we're seeing with Ty Johnson. So,
yep.
Yeah, that'll do it for the waiver wire wish list, though.
Again, stress. Tevin Coleman, go out and get him. Chuba Hubbard, see if he's out there. Amir Abdullah, see if he's out there. A.J. Dillon, if someone dropped him because Aaron Jones is back. Shit.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly,
Ramondre, if he's available, running backs.
The third string, whoever the backup running back is now for the Vikings.
One more.
No one on the Titans. It just literally go through every team that has a somewhat valuable backup. We might get to a point. You have a playoff matchup, just who's playing. Jeff Wilson, if he's available, he's probably top priority. I assume he's not available, but he should have been out here, I guess.
Deontay Johnson also.
Deontay Johnson, yeah. But, less with Kareem back. But you think you have Elijah Mitchell in the concussion protocol this week, which there's always a chance he just doesn't get out of it by Sunday, and he just has to sit this week, or he gets banged up yet again. But I believe Trey Sermon just went to IR this week. Mostert's done. I mean, so JaMychal Hasty, if you really want it,
probably. I mean, with Wilson too, I did see that he tweaked his knee in the game. It sounds like he'll be fine. But so Hasty is a guy that I would also investigate at least. So
yeah, but the point is just go through the running backs in your league and make sure you're not leaving a possible league winner in free agency or week winner for that week. But going into the last week of the season for most leagues, if they're smart, with the last bye week, I don't think that's fair to go into playoffs that week.
Yeah.
And so next week is playoffs. So you got to be prepared for all scenarios.
It's very true. Also, shout out to us in one of our leagues, an industry league too, the Contract Dynasty League that we do that has its own Twitter and stuff. I believe we won and got in. We were the 8 seed. 6 teams get in. 6 and 7 both lost. We have outscored them. We tied them in record. And I believe that we are going to slide into the playoffs in the first Contract Dynasty League. So excited about that one. We'll probably track our playoffs, but I know you guys don't care about our fantasy teams too much. So we might not talk about that. So, Randy, do you have anything to add before we get out of here?
Nope. I guess on Wednesday's show, Wednesday night, Thursday show, we'll go over the Listener League and give an update on that and give shout outs to the people that are already in the playoffs or the teams that are possibly in the playoffs. It's the last week of the regular season in that league, just like I said for most leagues. So
yeah,
it's exciting.
Very true. It's crazy that the season's just about over. Also, guys, make sure you go check out all of the awesome podcasts on this feed. The Coach Approach, the College Football Cut, and DFS Deep Dive. The College Football Cut is they're winding down, guys. The college football season is technically over. We are to bowl season. We are to the college football playoffs, and that's exciting too. Randy and I are. I know I am. I'm sure you are too. But I'm very excited to talk through some NFL draft prospects and get our thoughts down. I have watched exactly 100 players now. I've graded 100 players now at least. So
preliminary.
Yes. Well, a lot of them 2021 film finally. I'm circling back. So I have some takes. I tweeted out a take about running backs that we'll get to.
I have some takes.
I have lots of takes.
Name something you want to hear from Christian.
Yeah. No, let's not do that. All right. We'll be back on Thursday with our Start Sit show as always. Until then, make sure you follow me at C Williams NFL on Twitter, Randy at R Hall NFL on Twitter, and then our podcast Twitter is at the Cut FFB. We will talk to you guys later this week. For Randy Hall, I'm Christian Williams. Later.